Hello again, everybody. This is Brother Chooch for Thinking Out Loud About the End Times. This is Night Watch, a nighttime fellowship for those who are awaiting the soon return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to pull us out of this putrid prison and into the clouds, where we will see him for the first time face to face and be changed. And then he will take us to the place that he's been preparing for us for about 2,000 years, and thus will be with the Lord forevermore, our blessed hope. And we look forward to that day. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Please give me a thumbs up if you could hear me okay. I do know that I am turkeyed out. So let me just share with you my turkey journey before we get into end times. Obviously, Thursday, turkey, right? Thursday afternoon, turkey. Thursday night, turkey. Friday afternoon, turkey. Friday night, turkey. Saturday afternoon, turkey. Saturday night, turkey. Now, I had pizza for lunch today, and we had turkey for dinner. So that's seven turkey meals since Thursday afternoon. I am turkeyed out. Now, having said that, I'm very grateful for the turkey. That turkey of ours did not give his life in vain. We did eat the whole bird, but it is no joke. I do not know if I could have made it to day 5. So just before we get started about end times, is there anyone here who is still eating leftovers? Give me a thumbs up. If you're still eating leftover turkey, give me a thumbs up. I'm just curious. Off-grid homesteaders, Linda K, Tamara Driver, Pudge Otamus. Oh, you guys, there's quite a few of you. Wow. Is there anyone here who's going to go try to attempt day 5? See, we're going to have to count Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Is there anyone here who is daring enough to go to day 5 of turkey consumption? Because if you could make it to day 5 of turkey consumption, you deserve a thumbs up. You instantaneously have earned my respect. 5 days, getting to day 5 is like day 6. I wouldn't eat turkey on day 6. I don't think it would be good anymore. But if you could make it to day 5 with turkey, you are in an elite group and deserve recognition. Okay? I have tapped out on day 4. 7 meals of it. Can't do anymore. So anyways, I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Now, what I would like to talk about to you about the end times is a little bit about my journey and a little bit about your journey. All right. Now, I'm an old guy. I don't know if you could tell or not. At least in my standards, I'm old. I'm not older than dirt, but I'm not far behind it. Back in I would say 1977, my brother at the time, who was actually 8 years older than me and in high school, had a project in his religion class in Catholic high school that he was going to do a paper on the end times. And so at the time, my mother invited a friend over who had some material on the end times. Now we're going back to the late 70s. My mom had me stay in my room because I was just a boy. and I guess she didn't want me to hear the discussion. Keep in mind, my brother was about 15 or 16. I was about 7 or 8. And I listened into the discussion that was taking place. And the things that I heard them talk about fascinated me. It seemed like they talked about a tribulation period coming and an antichrist, um, and also they spoke in such a way where it sounded like believers were going to go through this period of time and not to take the mark of the beast. Those are some of the things that I remembered. But I remember being a child and hearing these things, and it just didn't really. I just didn't really hear that going to Catholic church religiously every Sunday. They didn't talk about such things. It was you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell, and then you found out that they taught on purgatory. But I never heard anything about uh, a tribulation period. And so that's got that back then, being about 7 years old or so, I was interested in the topic. Now, having been a Catholic for most of my childhood, it was kind of confusing because back at 7, I don't think I was saved. I think I got saved at 16. But I did believe in God. I did believe the Bible was true, but I was deceived a bit under the doctrine of Catholicism. And I won't get into all that. But, anyways, I got saved at 16, and I got a book that was popular at the time that was called The Late Great Planet Earth. And the cover of it had like the Earth like exploding. It was a really compelling cover. And so I read it, and at age 16, how many here have read The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey? Now I read mine back in the early 80s. Who read that? Is there anyone besides me? I'm sure many of you have read it, I would imagine. Okay. So when I read that book, it shook me to the core as really a young believer. Okay. It seems like quite a bit of you. Bro Tyler's on. Hi, bro. Hope you're feeling better by the day. Many of you read it. Okay. So I read it, and that was the first time that I had heard about this thing called the rapture. Because at the time, I was under the impression that when this terrible time in the future happens, that all Christians are going to need to get through it and make sure you don't take that mark. When I read Hal Lindsey's explanation of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 16 to 18, and that it would happen prior to the tribulation period, I was walking on a cloud. I think that's the best way I could describe it. I was so excited about that thought of Jesus coming at any moment for the church and snatching us away before all this terrible stuff happens on the earth. And so from that moment forward, I was really interested in the end times. And of course, I read other books, I did other studies. Now, I can't deny that there have been times that I explored different possibilities about the timing of the rapture. I think there were times, especially reading through Matthew chapter 24, that I was saying, hey, this sounds like we're going to go through the tribulation period. As I grew in my knowledge of the end times and saw systematically what Scripture's saying, uh, I became more and more solid on the position of pre-tribulation rapture. So because of that, of course, I was always sort of looking at what's going on in the world from the 80s forward, right? And so Hal Lindsey mentioned the common market. The common market was the early stages of the European Union. Now, Hal Lindsey, back in the late 70s, early 80s, was saying that he believed that the revived Roman Empire, which he believed would be the common market, which was called back then the common market, would eventually develop into 10 kings, and then that would be the end time beast, all right? And, if you read Hal Lindsey's stuff back then, it really sounded like, because he had follow-up books, right? He had even a book on the Rapture, a book, uh, Antichrist is alive and well on planet Earth, and something about Armageddon, all that. So he sold a lot of books, and this was basically in the late 70s, 80s, and maybe early 90s. Now, obviously, if you read Hal Lindsey's material, then you get into, you start to believe that it's right around the corner. And back in the 80s, too, they had things like 88 Reasons Why the Lord Will Return in 1988. J.R. Chooch wrote a book of um, hidden prophecies in the Psalms, and he alluded to a 1988 tribulation period beginning. So 1988 was hot. 1988 was a pretty hot year. And keep in mind that the thought was back in the 80s that a generation was 40 years. So if you take Israel being born in 1948 and you add 40 years, you got 1988, right? So there was a lot of chitter chatter, and I was certainly interested on the possibility of the rapture happening way back when. But obviously, that never came to fruition. That didn't play out that way. In the 1990s was kind of weird because there was this thought that we're approaching the year 2000. So what if the Lord comes at 2000? So if he comes back in 2000, what if the tribulation period happened in 1993? Okay, so there was that sort of thought going on. And so as we entertain these things, the 1990s were relatively excited. You had Prince's song, right? Party Like It's 1999. So not that that was prophetic or anything, of course not, but there was that worry about the Y2K. Who here remembers Y2K? A little bit of that hysteria. Remember the Y2K? All the computers were going to just kind of poop out. And it was a big fat nothing burger. It never amounted to anything. So here we go. We're in the year 2000. We're still here. Some of you may not have even been born yet in 2000. But we go into this new, always used to 1970 something, 1980 something, 1990 something. Now we're at 200, which was sort of weird. And it seems so long ago, but not so long ago. So here it is, 2000. Jesus didn't come back. And something happened the following year in 2001 that got the world's attention. It's something I've never witnessed in my life. it was 9/11. And in 9/11, on 9/11/01, we had an event that took place that I think changed the world. And the world has been different ever since. Now, back in 2001, I was like, whoa, is is this going to like lead into the tribulation period? Is this going to be the world's getting primed right now for the end? And so way back in 2001, I was like, whoa, we better get very serious here about sounding the alarm. And so one of the things that caught me by surprise was I was expecting that there would be um, many terrorist acts to happen after 9/11. One after, I thought this was going to usher in a period of a lot of terrorism. I find it interesting that that didn't play out that way. And I'm not going to get into reasons why, but I'm also not going to share my opinion on what I think really happened in 9/11, because that's not really contributing to the point or the line of discussion that we're trying to have tonight. But it really shook a lot of people up. And the world that seemed so predictable and secure wasn't all that secure anymore, wasn't all that safe. And then we know we went into the Gulf War and what happened in Iraq and how that all played out. It was really um, an unsettling time in the world. So as far as end times go, yeah, I mean we were looking and we were watching, we're seeing things happen in such a way where you could say, hey, could we be close? We know the Lord was getting people's attention, and it seemed like there was a small window of time shortly after 9/11 where people started to go to church, started to talk more about God, had more interest in God, but that faded pretty quickly, not too long afterward. And then we entered into a time where, things were kind of moving along and going, nothing incredibly earth shattering. But when I got to, I want to say 2012, I started to feel something in my spirit, I think, that started to get me more interested in the end times. I think at about 2005, 2006, after things started to settle down, after 9/11 and after the Gulf War and all that, I just, I didn't feel the same sense of urgency necessarily about the end times until we got to about 2012. And when President, at the time, President Obama came on the scene and how things sort of played out around in that time, something just seemed to shift. And I think it was almost like a feeling of darkness was starting to come over the land, so to speak. Now, I don't know what it is about Obama, but the guy gives me the creeps, and he still gives me the creeps. And every day I go to work, and when I leave the bathroom, there's a particular bathroom in the building I work in. And in the hallway are the pictures of our presidents from Washington, to Trump. They never put in President Biden yet. And every time I leave the bathroom, I see President Obama looking at me with, to me, a sinister like grin. And the guy creeps me out. I still believe he's a pretty strong candidate for Antichrist. But during those 8 years under Obama, I don't think we realize what the guy did. He gave uh, millions and millions, if not billions, of dollars to Iran that really helped their nuclear program. And he basically ushered in a different definition of marriage, let's say, than we had in the past. And he did a number of other things that I believe contributed to the end times, triple eights. I don't trust the guy. I don't think he's done doing his work. I can't say for sure he's the Antichrist, but he gives me the heebie jeebies. And so during his campaign and some of the things that happened in his campaign, I just started to feel like we are on a quicker pace towards the end. And then we had the Blood Moon Tetrad happen in 2014 and 2015. Scotty Clark came on the scene. This is the pre-Scotty Clark. This is the Scotty Clark that I enjoyed and liked. The Scotty Clark that's out today, it's not the same Scotty Clark. I don't know if he got hit with a lightning bolt. I don't know if the rightly dividing thing just got to him or whatever. He's just very different, Scotty Clark. Anyways, so Scotty Clark was showing some amazing stuff with the Revelation 12 sign. And by the way, I don't think Scotty Clark actually discovered the Revelation 12 sign, but he had some really good videos and good things about it. Well, anyways, the Blood Moon Tetrads came and went, and we're still here. The Great American Solar Eclipse happened, and the Revelation 12 sign happened in 2017. And I must admit that those signs in the heavens were very compelling, coupled with everything that was going on. Now, when President Trump got in, I believe that he was used by God also to accelerate the end time scene that we're experiencing right now, with what he did with Israel, moving the embassy into Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, strengthening his ties with Netanyahu at the time, between the United States and Israel, kicking those Abrahamic Accords, and also pushing a two-state solution. So that really, I believe, moved things forward. And then another thing happened in late 2019 and early 2020. Again, a major thing that I had never experienced in my whole life, which I believe was very much connected to and was going to usher in the tribulation period, the coronavirus. I don't want to talk too much about that, but you know what happened. And I saw things and witnessed things that I thought I would never witness. I never seen the world do things like they did. It was it was really weird, really bizarre. And if you told me back then that things would subside and we would go back to a place where we're doing some of the things that we used to do, which we're doing now, by the way, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. I'm still having trouble believing it. I really, really, truly believed at the time in 2019 and 2020 that this was going to usher us into the 7 year tribulation period. So I thought I really thought the rapture was close back in 2019, 2020, 2021. But it didn't happen. And so I was left scratching my head with, I really believe that the Lord gave us the blood moon tetrad of 2014, 2015. I really believe the Lord gave us the Great American solar eclipse. I really believe that the Lord gave us the Revelation 12 sign. I really believe the Lord allowed, now I'm not saying how it originated, but he allowed the world to go through what it went through with the whole pandemic. So as I'm looking at all these things and I'm saying, this has got to be pointing to the end. We got to be close to the rapture. We got to be close to the tribulation period. We're still here. It's 2023, and there's about 5 weeks left, and we're still here. And so, considering all that, it's humbling and perplexing to some degree. Is all this stuff happens and keeps happening, but we're still here. So one is, I have a hard time believing we're not very close. That's one. I have a really hard time believing we're not very close. Now, I left out a whole mess of stuff. I left out the alien talking, government involvement in aliens sightings and all that. I left out the red heifers that we've first viable kosher red heifers that we've had this old in 2,000 years. I've left out, um, all the peace and security, peace and safety talk that's been taking place. I left out all the floods, all the fires, all the earthquakes, all the civil unrest that's taken place that I would say has been heightened in the last few years. Okay. So there's a lot that's been happening in the world since 2000, but there's really been a tremendous amount happening since 2014. And a ton of things that have been happening since 2017. And so here we are in 2023, about to end. Israel was invaded and now is in a war. Now there's a ceasefire. There's a ceasefire. That ceasefire expires possibly tomorrow, possibly Tuesday. I'm not sure. Listen, I am not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I don't think I'm dull enough to dismiss all this and to say it's all circumstantial or it's coincidental. I saw what I saw. I lived through what I lived through, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing. So as we're moving right now, here we are, 2023, there's a few questions I have in my mind that I'll share with you. Now, again, I mentioned this has been a humbling journey. I am very humbled. I've gone through too much and listened to too many theories and got myself too excited too many times and got my hopes up in the dash too many times. I'm certainly excited about the prospect of the rapture. But at the same time, I've learned some lessons of humility. And so I'm careful now, but I'm still excited and I'm still watching and I'm still waiting. But I'm humbler than I was back in 2017. That's for sure. Okay. It's one thing to eat turkey for 4 days. Try eating humble pie for 7 years. Okay. And with the side of crow. So you look at what's going on right now, and I got two questions, two big questions I have is one is what's going on in Israel right now? Is this the beginning of the Psalm 83 war? Because I think if the answer to that is yes, I have a hard time believing that the rapture is far away. Because I really believe that the if the Psalm 83 war is playing out right now in real time, then we are got to be close. That's one thing. The other thing that I have been mulling around, and I didn't want to believe it because I didn't want it to be, but now I do want it to be, if that makes sense, is that the question is, and I've been asking this, you guys want me to put up a poll. What poll question you want me to ask? How many turkeys you guys ate? Give me a poll question. I'll put it up if it's good. Um, so if the thing is question number one is this the beginning of Psalm 83 war? If the answer is yes, well, that maybe that's the poll question. Oy, oy. Is this conflict in Gaza the beginning of the Psalm 83 war? Let me put that out there. So that's one question. The other question is, was the Revelation 12 sign a 7-year warning before the tribulation begins? Now, the reason why I think that's so significant is one is since I believe wholeheartedly that that was a sign from God, and I could be wrong, but I believe wholeheartedly was a sign from God. Then the next question is, what was that sign pointing to? And because the number 7 is such a repeated important number in eschatology, in the book of Revelation, could it be that the Revelation 12 sign that seems to describe the rapture and the tribulation period playing out, that that was a 7-year warning before we get to 2024? Okay, so that's going to be our next poll question. Those are the two questions that I have unanswered. Now, they're both going to be answered, maybe not while I'm down here. I hope not. But they're going to have to be answered because this conflict in Gaza, and will it blow up into all the other descriptions of the areas in the nations surrounding Israel? Will they get involved in the conflict? And will Israel have a resounding victory over them? And will that eventually lead to Damascus getting blown up in the Ezekiel 38-39 conflict? Perhaps. Time will tell. Will it fizzle? Will it fizzle out? Or will it blow up into that? What you guys think? I'd like to get at least 300 votes. So please vote if you haven't. It should be on your live chat. It's a blue box. Is this conflict in Gaza the beginning of the Psalm 83 war? And we need 6 more votes to get to 300 votes. Oh, we got to 300. Okay, beautiful. 86% of you answered yes, that you believe that this conflict in Gaza is the beginning of the Psalm 83 war. 14% of you voted no. Okay. All right. So I'm going to end that poll. Thank you for that. Results should be posting there on the live feed. Now, the question I have for you, number 2, which is the question that I'm asking myself, was Revelation 12 sign of 2017 17a 7-year warning to the tribulation period? So no, simple question and simple answer. All right, so you guys please vote on that. So as I shared with you before, see, I went through different things in my journey of the end times, where even before 2000, there were some ups and downs. Could this be it? Maybe yes, maybe no. One thing that's so significant is that Israel, which should be our focus, Israel is a huge focus if you're following end times. If Israel does anything at all, if Israel burps, it should grab your attention. Right? Israel's at war with Hamas. Israel is having many skirmishes with Hezbollah. We know that Iran is behind all their proxies, telling them probably what to do, when to do, how to do. And the very fact that Iran more than likely has nuclear capabilities now, and perhaps Jeremiah 49 might play out as interpreted as Bill Salas interpreted it. We could be there. This could be it. This could be it. And if it is it, I was going to say put your seatbelt on, but I'm confident enough that even if you had a seatbelt on, the rapture will still grab you and take you away. Seatbelt cannot prevent you from being raptured. You could put big weights and big chains around your ankles, connected to cement poles. You're still going to get raptured. If you have placed your faith in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, by believing that He's the Son of God who died on the cross for your sins by shedding His blood, died, was buried, and rose again, if you believe and place your faith in Him, you're going to be raptured, and there's nothing that you could do to stop it. You could duct tape yourself to a telephone pole. You could you could go to your bank, and those big, thick steel vaults that they have, you could get thrown in there, and they could lock you in there. You're still going to get raptured. He is able. All right. So let me see here. We have our 300 votes, 302. Was the Revelation 12 sign of 2017 a 7-year warning to the tribulation period? 81% have said yes, and 19% have said no. So 8 out of 10 of you believe that it was a 7-year warning. If that's the case, there's not much time left. Think about that. 2024 is a stone's throw away. Now, let me just say this. Those who are still awaiting and are hoping for a 2023 Rapture, me included, I would love a 2023 Rapture. Trust me. Keep your hope up. Keep your hopes up. There's still 35 days left or so, right? It's okay to look at every single day and be excited. There's no problem with that. All I'm doing is thinking out loud, asking some questions, because what's going on is very, very, very exciting. I'm very excited about the second part of the Great American Solar Eclipse. So there's still a lot going on. There's still a lot to be excited about. And what is happening right now in Israel, even this week coming up, is interesting. Will the ceasefire continue? If the ceasefire doesn't continue and Israel continues their forward progress in this exercise, well, it's not an exercise, in this plan that they have in Gaza, will the world be up in arms? Will Iran tell Hezbollah, jump in? This very easily can land up being a major escalation, much worse than it currently is. And then again, the ceasefire could continue, and it could land up being a bit of a oof moment. So I'm going to ask you guys, do you believe that the ceasefire cease? Is that one word? Yeah, it is. Okay. Will continue on for a long period of time. Right, let's put that poll in, because I think that's kind of important to know. I would think that if this is the Psalm 83 war, that the ceasefire will not be a long-term thing. So we got to see how that plays out. So why did I share everything that I shared? Why did I go back to the 70s? Why did I talk about the 80s and the 90s and the zeros and the tens and now the 20s? Because that's the journey I've been on. Right? This is sort of like my pilgrim progress. Right? This is like my harpazo progress. This is my journey towards that blessed day of the rapture. Now, I don't know what your story is. I don't know how long you've been watching or waiting. I don't know if back in the 70s you were thinking about this, or the 80s. Matter of fact, that's something I would like to ask. How many people here? Let's see. All right, so we got almost 300 votes here on the ceasefire. Do you believe that the ceasefire will continue on for a long period of time? 24% of you said yes. 76% of you said no. Okay. I'm going to ask you in this poll, how long, when did your called the Rapture Journey. Rapture Journey Begin. Or during 70s, 80s, 90s. There's only so many options I could add here. Yeah, 4. Uh, 10. Okay, so I'm going to start the poll here. When did your rapture journey begin? Before or during the 70s, during the 80s or 90s, during the 2000s, so from 2000 to 2009, or 2010 or later, right? Now, I'm sharing my rapture journey because it's been a long journey. To me, it's just going to sweeten the day. That day will be sweet for you too if you've only been on a rapture journey for 7 weeks, whether it's 7 years or 7 weeks, it's going to be very sweet. Some of you, it might be 50 years or more. And that's great. That's wonderful. So we keep waiting, keep watching. What's your story like? What's your ups and downs been like? I would like to hear from you personally. Now, if you don't mind me sharing your story, your rapture journey story, then you could email me, and I'll put my email up here, Chooch 777 at gmail.com, and I'll pin it so you could pin it. If you want to email me your rapture journey, the ups and the downs, how it started, where you're at today, where you've been recently, email me. But just keep in mind, if you email me, it could be shared on a night watch. Right? So I'm not going to have sign a waiver or anything like that. I just don't want to be dogged by your attorneys if I mention your YouTube screen name and read your email. I'd be more than interested to hear what your journey's been like and see how relatable it's been. Again, whether it's been 7 weeks or 7 years or 50 years, I would like to know. I would like to see, what have you been through? Why are you still watching? Now, believe me, for every one person here who's been watching, there's probably 5 to 10 of you that have tapped out. Got it clear so you can't see it. Isn't that a nice cup? Thinking out loud about the Zazalalu, the Rapture, Narapazzo. So if you, excuse me, if you know of a fellow believer who is tapped out, now keep in mind, they didn't lose their salvation. It doesn't mean they're not going to be raptured. And also, it might not mean uh, anything spiritually speaking bad, but I choose to watch and remain excited. And so all I am saying is that for every one of you here who's still exciting and watching, there's probably 5 to 10, I would say 5 to 10 Christians who have tapped out. And it's just, I think, the reality of it is what it is. So I just want to encourage you, don't tap out from watching. If you want to stop, like, watching my videos, I take no offense to that. I know we speculate, I know we talk out loud about these things. If this kind of talk is not edifying or encouraging to you and affects you negatively in any way spiritually, unsubscribe and spend your time elsewhere. You could certainly do. Reading your Bible will always trump listening to any of these channels. This should be a supplement at best. Should not be in place of your own personal Bible study and go to a good Bible church and have fellowship with believers. I kind of like this kind of fellowship too, but don't don't let this be this these sort of channels can be encouraging and potentially discouraging. And so there is a level of maturity that's needed to follow along because there will be plenty of ups and downs, right? So this is not for if you get easily discouraged, I would consider not watching these sort of channels. If you do find it encouraging in the fellowship and as you get excited, yes, please keep tuning in. If you do like orangutans, you may want to stick around on TOL because we have other things to offer besides just end time talk. But it's, yeah, right. Oceania, it's not for the faint of heart. And Visionary Vet, it should be iron sharpening iron, right? And so that's part of this. The part of it is be humble and we look at what's going on. If I'm watching a movie, if I'm watching an action flick with you or that has some mystery to it of who the killer is or whatever, as you're watching the movie and we're talking, right? We're seeing things like you think Jack's who seems to be the good guy. Do you think he's behind all this? Now, based on what I saw in the movie, I'm just kind of sharing with you. I'm not saying he's definitely it, but I'm saying, do you think Jack might be the guy who murdered the lady in the beginning? Yeah. Barry Scarborough is doing good, by the way. I just emailed him last week or 2 weeks ago, and he's doing fine. Uh, you could pray for his health still. I think he's still dealing with health issues. Um, but that's really great that you're asking for him. So you're watching this. You're watching in the middle of the movie. You say that, and it's like, okay, it wasn't Jack. You find out later on when the movie reveals more information that Jack is a good guy after all. It was Bob. Bob is the guy who's the bad guy. So, do you want to like get mad at me because I thought it was Jack based on certain observations? I mean, that's sort of what we're doing here. We're watching in real time the end of days play out right before, I believe, the rapture. And we're looking at all this stuff and seeing how it fits in. So when I look backwards and I see some of the things that I said, when I heard some of the things I said, I'm like, boy, that was way off. I mean, it's easy to look now back and say, boy, that was a dumb hypothesis I had at the time. But it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. Uh, that's why I'm careful to say when I do observe things, like for example, I'm saying, could this be the beginning of the Psalm 83 war? So what people do, they'll say, Bro Chooch is saying this is the Psalm 83 war. I didn't say that. I said, could this be the beginning of the Psalm 83 war? So then what happens is I'm going to get probably an email or two that's saying, for those who think I'm some sort of false prophet or false teacher, they're going to be saying, you're telling your subs that it's the Psalm 83 war and the war's over. And see, I don't even respond to those emails anymore because I realize that no matter what I say or do, I'm going to be the bad guy in their eyes. But that's why I say things like, could this be? Could this not be? Right? No, so as I look at what we have here for our poll, when did your rapture journey begin? Before or during the 70s? 18% of you. Now we got 480 plus votes here. During the 80s or 90s, 25% of you said that's when your rapture journey began. During the 2000s, 13% of you. 2010 or later, 44%. Wow. So 44% of you, your rapture journey began in 2010 or later. That's a little less than half, but that's a significant amount. So let me end that poll. All right. So here's my final encouragement to you. If you've been waiting, whether it be 1950, maybe some of you have been waiting as long as Israel became a nation again, 1948. If you've been waiting that long, I want to encourage you that I believe that the Lord will reward you. He rewarded Anna and Simeon as they waited patiently. Read the beginning of Luke, I believe. You're going to see that the Lord rewarded them for their long suffering and their patience and their service. I believe that we who are watching and waiting, the Lord will recognize that. And we will agree that it was worth it. In the meantime, I would love for this to be the last TOL video because we got raptured out of here, not because I got ran over by a truck, but because the harpazo happened. And so that's why I'll end by saying, hope to see you here, there, but especially in the air. God bless you all.